Hello, friends, neighbors. John, your wish neighbor here. Welcome down the Nook. Welcome to Sunday and some samples. And I got a lot of bottles up here, but it is a sample review because this sample was sent to me from GrainHenge, which is part of the Trouble Monk Brewery down in Red Deer area in Alberta. Anyways, I want to talk about this GrainHenge Alliance 2. It's a Canadian single malt. This one's 5 years old, so it's young, but we're starting to get somewhere with age here in Canada. So if you have anything from GrainHenge, I think it'd be great. I'm going to talk about Alliance 2. I'm going to talk about Elevator Row. I'm going to talk about Alliance 1. So if you want to know anything a bit about GrainHenge, why don't you pour some if you have. If not, pour something Canadian would be great. Come back and we'll just sip some whiskey together. 3, 4. Thanks for coming back. As I said, this is a sample. I just poured it for the first time. I haven't even got down there and nosed it. I don't think there's a good camera shot on this. This is Alliance 2. You know what? I'll put Alliance 1 out here and put it out again later. I'm actually tasting it just so you kind of get a sense of the GrainHenge bottle because I think they're really well designed. Whoever put their bottle art together, I think is really, really nice. So coming back to what we're going to talk to first, this is GrainHenge whiskey, and this is known as Alliance 2. It's Canadian single malt. It's made of 2-row barley and dark Munich malt. I think those two malts are in here. Released at cask strength, 59.3%. Natural, non-chill filter, and that part is nice because it's nice and light and straw. So then you got to think, because I've had some 3-year-old single malts that are dark as mud. So it really now is what the casks are. And these casks are ex-bourbon as you'd expect and ex-barley wine. So that's kind of weird. Kind of like an ex-malt. I mean, barley, I don't know. An ex-barley wine and ex-bourbon cask in here at 59, did I say? Somewhere big. 59.3%. So let's give it a nose and taste. Let's see what this young at 5 years, but this Canadian single malt is like. It's bright, it's light citrus, it's pear. Kind of reminds me of that 2 Brewers 35 now that I think about it. Should have poured that as contrast. But like it's actually quite nice on the nose, but very light, very fruity, very orchard fruit, light lemon. And actually maybe a little bit of white grape, like that kind of impression I get with a white wine, which is interesting. Yeah, there's a fair amount of sweetness in there. Get some malt sugars, some candied sugars. Well, what I'm certainly not getting, and this is not a criticism, just describing, I'm certainly not getting any, like there's no Oloroso sherry berry type. For me, it's very light, orchard sweet, pear, white grape, white wine, light sugars, confectionery vanillas. Very much in that whole palette. Nice, pretty nice for 59%, but light and not a lot of oak in it for me. Not a lot of oak backing or even char. Let's try it on the palate. Cheers. That is very nice on the palate. Lots of graham cracker in there. More of that, barley, but well done. Barley cake, barley sugars. I'm going to say, graham cracker, that type of kind of a chewiness, sweet, malt. I'm still getting a bit of that white grape. And not white grape, white wine. Really quite a bit of that note, that kind of that sweet, dry. Wow. Better try another sip. Second sip can give me a little more oak, but I'm getting tons of that graham cracker, light white stone fruit, almost peach sweetness, pear, Lots and lots and lots of that. Some sweet vanilla, aromatic vanilla comes up even on the finish as I'm breathing out through my nose. I'm getting a lot more vanillas in here. So good vanillas, sweet vanillas. Interesting. You know, this is a nice young malt, and one that actually I feel I'm getting closer to their distillate in this in a nice way. I'm quite appreciating it's, you know, it's 5 years, but clearly they've chosen the cask because it's expressing well, and it is. It's nice in my palate. It's got a little bit of body to it. I won't say this one's chewy, but it's got a little nice coating nature on it, and it certainly is a great experience. Like, this is an exciting Canadian single malt. So I'll confess, when I saw Alliance 2, I assumed we were going to get Alliance 2 after this Alliance. This is corn whiskey. It's a 72% corn, 17 rye, 11 barley kind of thing. It's basically bourbon, but made here in Canada. But it's not. This is a single malt. So I haven't tasted, I've tasted this before, but I haven't directly compared it to this, which is Elevator Row. Now, Elevator Row is a single malt from GrainHenge, but it is much younger, 43 months. And instead of being aged in X-Cask, ex-bourbon, ex-barley wine, this Elevator Row is aged in new oak. We've got number 3 and number 4 charred new oak barrels. So it's interesting to me that I'm going to go younger here, but I'm also, like, it's natural, non-chill filter, and you can see quite a bit more color on the younger single malt, which of course is coming from those charred barrels, right? You get some nice color out of new oak char. That's what's giving all that color to bourbon. Whereas here, when you've got ex-bourbon barrels, there's a lot less color coming in, even though it's been in barrel 2 more years. Let's try this Elevator Row single malt just in direct comparison. Oh, what is it? 58.2. So very close. Also pretty big on the proof. Let's try it on the nose. Elevator Row from GrainHenge. You know, it's interesting. I don't recall, but now I get, oh, there's a little bit of family resemblance. This is much sweeter. This does bring in those toasted oaks, those brown sugars, those, a little more toffee caramel coming on, which is coming from that new oak. But it still has a bit of that light orchard sweetness. I wonder if that's close to a house style. Interesting. Let's try this one on the palate. Cheers. Just like following the nose, this has some nice sweet malt, some nice similarities to here, light fruits. Has more spicing, and just that oak gives it those caramelized brown sugar backing mixed in with the malt. We're not in bourbon territory, but it definitely highlights what new oak gives to a whiskey with those caramelized sugars, those cooked brown sugars, those, I'm almost getting cinnamon on this one. In fact, I think I am. But it still is a single malt, and it's barley sugars and graham crackers and little slight nuttiness if I'm really thinking about it. Definitely a single malt, but probably more appealing, although it is a little more bracing. Like, I get a little more alcohol spice or heat, which I think comes across as cracked pepper, and I like that, so that's nice. This is already getting into a more relaxed sipping single malt. This is certainly more abrasive, but also comes with a lot more of that oak flavors versus this has that sweet white wine fruiting notes. Interesting. All right, last one up here, just because it may be your first time hearing about GrainHenge. I thought I will shoot Alliance 1. Alliance 1 was a single cask pick by Ryan Egan for Wine and Beyond. And it is, even though it has the same name as Alliance, now we are out of single malt territory. We are classically in what we have to call corn whiskey here north of the border. It's, like I said, I'll put it down below. I feel like it's around 71, 72% corn, around 17% rye, and about 11% barley. The same kind of barley mix that they're putting in here. I think it's just the 2-row though, I think. But this is even younger at 37 months. So I think we've just cracked over 3 years, so we can still call it a whiskey. And it's also in new oak, and I think it even is darker. Well, very close call to the elevator row, but again, it's got beautiful color, and it's picking that up from those charred new oak barrels. All right, let's give this a nose. This has been a really neat walkthrough between, only X casks, then almost the same malt younger, but in new oak. And then here we've got so much corn, 71% corn, and it is so much sweeter, a little more butter, but a lot of that corn sweetness, like popcorn corn sweetness. I'm getting a slight sour note to it, which is interesting. I don't know where that's coming from, but just a little bit of souring. Not like the light citrus in here. This was a light, not sour citrus, so maybe I need to go more into orange. I didn't feel like orange, but whereas this feels like a soured cherry, if I might. Let's get it on the palate and get into it. Cheers. That is so good. And here where I was starting to get some brown sugars, now like this just feels like an explosion, like it's tumbling around with that corn. So I got all kinds of caramelized popcorn and sugared popcorn and brown sugars and cinnamon bun and all that stuff. There's something in here right now that's a little bit abrasive, a little bit. When I say soured cherry, it's in the palate too. It's a soured something. Maybe I just need to let it express more, and maybe some of that will evaporate because it's certainly not in my notes. Earlier, I would have said, it's my favorite. It was my favorite over the elevator row, and I've done that back and forth. Now, they're wildly different distillates. And up here, I want to say it's my favorite run of flavors. Leaving a little bit of light cherry. I said sour cherry today, but a little bit of light cherry and lots of caramelized popcorn and good oak and nice spice. It probably is my favorite, but I am very intrigued by this last one. I think if you're a single malt fan, this Alliance 2 has reached the stage, it's young at 5 years, but that it should be sampled. You should be getting into this. You should be watching these guys at GrainHenge from Trouble Monk. I think they've got a really nice distillate on their hand, and it's starting to speak here. And as this hits 8 years and whatnot, it's just going to keep singing. This is good stuff. Thanks for joining me here. Thank you, GrainHenge, for sending this. I'll always be open with you guys about what I find. It always has to be my own tasting, or there's no point in doing this. But this year, I am committed to trying to talk more Canadian whiskey just to share with those who tune in. It gets way less clicks or views than any other whiskey style, but I need to get okay with that because I am Canadian and there are some good things happening, and I will say these guys at GrainHenge are one of the good groups making some great releases. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a good week and stay warm. It's still like minus 38 out there or something insane. Take care.